Okay, so the web is made of links to other pages. That's really all it is. So I have one page here, but what if I wanted to link to Google? Or what if I wanted to link to another page of mine? First things first, let's start off by using the most simple form. Let's just link to Google or Facebook or Instagram or something like that. So in this lesson, we're going to create two different types of links. The first one, and I just flipped over to VS Code here. The first one is going to be a link just to Google. And this is an absolute link. The second one is going to be a relative link. So a link starts with the A element, and this stands for anchor. It's a hypertext anchor. We can see that over here. Thank you, VS Code, for filling that in for me. So we have an anchor tag, and this actually uses our first attribute. We haven't used an attribute yet. And that's going to be href, and that stands for a hypertext reference. And basically, this is how we're going to point to another web page. Now, it's been a little while, but an attribute is always the attribute name, equal, and then either quotations or apostrophes. They have to start and end with the same. It doesn't matter which one you use, but it has to start and end with the same. And let's go ahead and close this A tag. And let's say this is a link. And let's see what happens. When I go back here and refresh my page, looks like a link. But when I click it, it doesn't actually go anywhere. So what I want to do here is href is equal to, and I want the full link to any website, including the HTTP part. That's vital. You need the HTTP every single time you want an absolute link. So let's go ahead and go to Instagram.com. So all I did there was HTTP or HTTPS. Most websites have that S these days. Colon, // and then the website, so Instagram.com. And actually this slash isn't even necessary. Let's go ahead and save that and refresh. And when I go over here, you can see the link has actually changed to a blue because I haven't clicked it yet. And let's click the link. And look at that, it brought me to Instagram. So I'm gonna go back, and maybe I don't want Instagram. Maybe I want something a little less personal. Let's go to Google. So go ahead, save, refresh. And you can see at the bottom left, it says https google.com. Click that, and boom, it brings us to Google. And that's all there is to really adding a link to any page that you have. So again, it's the A element for anchor. The href attribute is equal to quotation, and then your website URL, that link, and then some text. So we can say this is going to go to Google. And because that's going on to 2 lines in my editor, I'm just gonna put this on 2 different lines. And again, white space does not matter. So it doesn't matter that I have all these different spaces in here. I can still go back to my browser, hit refresh. The only thing that changes is the text, not the extra spacing. And so it changed the text. This is going to go to Google. And it does. Now that's nice, but what if you want to link to your own web page? Well, that's a little bit different because you can see up here, there's no HTTPS. This is a file, and you could theoretically link to it, but you don't want to because, well, I'm on a Mac, so it starts with file. But if you're on Windows, it starts with C. And if you're on Linux, it's just a slash. So it's not going to work for everybody, and we need to make sure that works on every operating system. And the way we get around that is using a relative link. So a relative link looks almost identical to an absolute link, or an absolute anchor. We can do href is equal to, we have our quotations in here, and let's go and say second page.html. We'll close that opening tag and say this goes to the second page. And we always close, anytime we have text inside of an element, we always close it with a closing tag. And let's take a look at this. And we can see these links are side by side. So we know from the last lesson that these are inline elements because they work side by side, which means we could put them inside of a paragraph nicely. And when I click this goes to a second page, at the bottom left, you can actually see that it's going to users Caleb Tallien desktop second page.html. And this actually doesn't exist. So when I click this link, it goes to a 404 page. 404 just means your page doesn't exist. It says your file was not found, it may have been moved or deleted. Emphasis on that, if you're moving files from one folder to another folder, it may be moved or deleted. And basically it's saying that the file doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and make this file exist. I'm going to close this tab because that's not needed. And let's do this. I'm going to copy this whole page, and I'm going to go File, Save As. And wherever you have hello world.html, let's call this one second page.html. Save. And so now we have a second page.html, and I can File Open or Command O or Control O and open up hello world. And now we have two files side by side. So the second page one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete pretty much everything inside of the body. So let's go and delete all this stuff. Let's change the title to second page. And let's say an H1. This is the second page. That's all we're going to do. So I saved that. And when I come back here, this now exists at this file location on my computer. And if I hit refresh, it actually works. So if I go back, refresh this just for good housekeeping. If I refresh this and I say this goes to second page, it was 404 and it was saying there was a missing file or a missing page. Now it's not. Now it's going to actually load the page for me. Lastly, on our second page, let's go ahead and add one more anchor link back to our hello world page. And let's say hello world.html. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is this is not an absolute link. It does not start with HTTP. It is not an absolute link. This just says go to this particular file, which happens to be in the same folder as second page. So these are side by side in the same folder. And it's going to say, oh, look for this particular file. So it's actually linking to another file, not necessarily a web page. And that gets a little bit into how pages are actually served on a server, basically because a server is just someone else's computer. But this one could say, go back to home. Save, refresh. Let's go back to home. I'm going to make that just a touch bigger here. So this is our second page. Go back to home. And we now have two pages that link to each other. And if you give this a shot and you get this to work, that means you have successfully created a network of pages. You don't just have a web page now, you have a web site.